right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Fuel Pod, episode 103. And we are going to be talking about the Spanish Grand Prix tonight. If you can't tell from the caption from my son, he turned 18, so he's finally an adult. So, woohoo. Yay.
All right.
Yay. Joking, man. Congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
Go give the casino some money.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Saturday.
Don't do that. Not smart. Not a good start. Anywho, so we had to
buy some cigarettes and go gamble.
Wow, Mikey removed from stage. Remove Mikey from stage. Can't find the button. Okay, so we're gonna be talking about the Spanish Grand Prix tonight. Kind of a weird race, a little bit. I enjoyed it, man. There was a lot of tight wheel to wheel, a lot of changing hands, a lot of background strategy that was going on for a lot of things. Obviously, Max Verstappen won, so he's back in form this week, but he did not have the fastest car.
No.
It wasn't even close. Lando Norris had the fastest car, and he kind of owned that circuit this weekend, the whole weekend. Just perfect laps. But this is one of those races where McLaren was faster and Red Bull was smarter. Lando had a horrible start. I'm not going to say it looked like he was sitting still, but he had a horrible start. And it cost him. But let's go back to the beginning and look at quali real quick first before we really get into the race.
Yeah, let's do that.
I got to tell you, man, 0.47 seconds between P1 and P7. So between Lando Norris and Pierre Gasly was only 0.47 seconds. It's 0.4. Well, almost 0.5 of a second.
Yeah.
So
and really, you could probably put Piastri in there too. He had a front row lap going.
I mean, I would if I were you, but I'm me, so I'm not putting Piastri.
Well, that's for you. So Ferrari qualified where? We'll just talk about them tonight.
No, we're not, because I'm going to pick on them tonight like nobody's business.
It's close.
It really wasn't. It was terrible, and we'll get to that.
It was not Ferrari's weekend.
But what do you guys think about Alpine? P7,
Alpine was
P9.
cooking this week. They were doing good.
I mean, Gasly showing out. Looked like he finally got ahead of Ocant. And, dude, I can't say enough about Mercedes. I don't know what you guys want to say about them, but second row lockout. Beating both Ferraris, and it was literally in the last second of quali. Those two cars coming around the turn and taking it. But again, Lando Norris, I thought Max Verstappen was going to run away with quali. Lando was up there. Piastri was up there for a while. I really think that him going off track really just took the wind out of his sails, Mikey. I don't know what your thoughts are, but I felt like
that was his shot. That was his shot. He went off and erased his lap and put him P10.
Yeah. And he didn't rebound after that. And he didn't rebound during the race either. And it almost looked like he was in a completely different car than Lando. At least that's if I'd have been a McLaren fan, I would have been pretty kind of, Lando was stellar, but Oscar was not typical Oscar this weekend.
Yeah, so, that's what I keep reading is. But he started. But did he start P10 or P9 because of Perez?
I think it was P9.
But he made up a couple of spots. He didn't get any messes in any practice with anyone. He held his own. Just kind of stayed where he was at. Didn't go up. Didn't go back. And in the points, what else? You can't say that's a bad day.
And all in all, I don't think
they will.
All in all, I don't think it was a bad day. What I think happened was he set such a high standard for himself in the previous races that people are going to expect him to be up there. And that's just the nature of the business of Formula One. Once you get up there once, you're expected to be there every week.
Yeah, and it seems like the two McLaren boys are and I hate this, they are the hardest on themselves, especially Lando. I mean, he can even crack a smile on the podium. I hate that. Dude, P2 in the Max Verstappen era is pretty damn good.
And I get it, but here's the thing with, and I think Lando
and where
said
were
it
you?
best.
Where were you last year?
Yeah, true. Well, at this point last year, they were starting to come around. They weren't what they're doing now by any stretch of the imagination, but as we now move into the race and talk about it, I think Lando said it best in his post-race interview right after the race, like pre-podium, where he said, I felt like we had a chance to win it today. And, and he shouldered the brunt of that, saying, I felt I had a really bad start. And it wasn't a horrible start. He didn't get caught sitting still. But no, he didn't have a great start. And he was fighting Verstappen right from the jump.
Yeah,
but
you have to.
Yeah.
That's what Orlando was beating himself up over, and everybody pointed, well, he was concentrating on Max. He was so much worried about him, and he did, because Max said it in the driver's room afterwards. You slowed us both down. Well, what else are you going to do there? You have to be concerned with Max, because if not, Max gets in front of you and wins the race by 30 seconds.
Yeah, and that's fair. But I think, Lando made two mistakes I think he made. One was the start. And I'm going to go back and highlight that in a minute because I want to talk about George Russell. But the other one was, it's still early in the race, but a little bit, past the start, obviously. And everybody was about to finish up on that first stint with soft tires. And they asked Lando if he wanted to pit. And he said, no, I think we should chase Max. And Max literally like on cue pitted. Like right after Lando told his team that. And I felt like Lando should have mirrored that at that point. Because that's what decided the race. Lando decided to extend. And it just, once he did pit it, he didn't have a big enough lead in the first place. And it cost him the race, I think. And I think he knows that. And I think that's what he's alluding to when he wasn't smiling on the podium. I think he knows he gave one away.
There was a couple of things there, and we'll get into pit stops later, but talk about George going from the exit lane to the HOV and around the outside on turn one.
George Russell started the race. He dives in behind Max and Lando, realizes they're duking it out. He's like, screw this. Cuts to the outside, goes round the outside using Max and Lando as trailer park girls, and completes the pass and has first place in the race, which, if he didn't do anything else the rest of the day, that was brilliant.
It was brilliant.
Yeah. So that was crazy in and of itself. And super impressed with Mercedes all day, to the point that it made me not happy with Ferrari, because it felt like they took a step back this week and Mercedes took a gigantic step up. I was talking with Chad today, and apparently he was listening to another podcast. I don't know which one. And they were talking about, and this was before the race, and they were talking about somebody on they had like a ringer, I guess, on the show, and he was talking about how, if you don't have Mercedes up there, get them up there, because they're bringing some upgrades that are for real. And he ended up being right. And they definitely held their own. So hold on just a second. Jason dropped. He's trying to get back in. He's got some internet issues tonight, apparently. And I know he wants to talk about this stuff. But anyway, so Russell gets around the outside, but I think Mercedes' biggest thing right now is being able to hold what they get. It's like they get something and then they have to give it up. Whether it's pit strategy or whatever, but you know, and if Ferrari had favored Carlos Sainz instead of Leclerc, then Ferrari would have had a chance because they undercut both of Mercedes drivers with Sainz, and he had them both times. But apparently he was under team orders to keep Charles up front, which is a whole new story by itself because the Leclerc Sainz issue on Sunday was just blatantly clear. So here you got Sainz in his home race and early on, and they go wheel to wheel and bump wheels, him and Leclerc, and Sainz goes off in the paint and ends up coming out in front of Leclerc. Of course, they made him give it back. Not the FIA, Ferrari made him give it back. And he was a faster car all weekend. He was a faster car in the race. He undercut Russell. He undercut Hamilton. He passed both of them. Leclerc couldn't do any of that, and they just kept giving the race back to Leclerc. And it drove me up the frickin' wall, man. And then we get to post-race interviews, and they're talking to Leclerc, and he's like, look, I get it. I know it's his home race, but he needed to know that I was there. And I'm like, brother, you just won your home race at Monaco. You couldn't give up the love for your teammate. And I feel like, and I told Chad this today, but I feel like Ferrari's already cut ties with Carlos. And it's like, hey, man, hang in and play team ball. And, you know.
I think you're on something there. And I think it's aggravating for Ferrari.
Yeah.
You know, pre-race, which one of their drivers is getting all the interviews? Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
Where are you going? Where are you going? What are your plans? What are your plans? And Ferrari's sitting there like, screw that, dude. Here's our guy.
Yeah. Well, him and Hamilton.
And so I think there's some aggravation there on Ferrari's spot. You know, I think you're onto something there that they're just
they've cut Sainz out of the mix, which sucks because he had a better car and it was his home race. And I think if they'd you know, respected him at all, they would have deferred to him on Sunday. It's not like he had a slower car. It's not like they would have been deferring just because it was his home race. He was faster in P1, FP1, 2, and 3, and faster in quali until the end. And they decided to show preference to Charles, and that's what happened. But I will say this, it was funny listening to Carlos's post-race interview where he said that guy complains too much. All he does is complain.
Yeah.
You know, if he's in front, it's like, hey, we can tell Carlos we're not racing. And if he's behind, it's, hey, are we racing or not? Or tell Carlos to move over. He's so slow. And it just drives me nuts. And I mean, there's nothing we can do about it, obviously, but I think as the season progresses on, we're just going to see more and more. It's going to get worse before it gets better, which, you know, sucks. But anyway, another big event this weekend, Lewis Hamilton back on the podium, which I can't believe I'm going to say this, was great to see. One, because he deserved it, man. He's worked hard. He deserved it. Two, because it was him and not George Russell. So I was happy for him.
Yeah, for sure. And I didn't see what happened there on why George was on hards and Lewis on softs. But George didn't have anything. He wasn't going to be able to compete with those softs.
No, he wasn't. And
But,
you know,
it doesn't look like Mercedes is sabotaging him any.
No, and I don't think they are. And he was on a different strategy from Hamilton, and Hamilton went with soft, medium, soft. And I don't think George would have been able to do that because Hamilton had to run that last stint of softs for a while. And I think, you know, 7-time world champion with a lot of years in the sport, he knows how to make that work. So anyway, it was good to see Hamilton on the podium. Another great thing to see this weekend was I felt like Pierre Gasly was in a big time return to form this week. Showed out in quali, showed out in the race. Even Ocon did, okay in the race, but it was good to see Gasly up there. And I was happy for Alpine, in kind of an old school
Yeah, they were
Renault.
running together and didn't get in
Yeah.
each other's way. So
Yeah, and that is a tough relationship right there. That goes back all the way to karting, and I don't think we'll ever get the real story. My other big one this week.
one thing
especially-
I was going to
Go
bring
ahead.
up while you're talking about the front runners here is something that made a huge difference also in between Max, George, and Lando. Is Max had a 1.9 second pit stop compared to George having a 5.3 second and Lando having a 3.6 second.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to pit. I'm glad you brought
That
that up.
1.9.
I don't know what happened to pit stops this weekend, but like you said, Russell had like a Kick Sauber style
Yeah.
pit stop at one point. And yeah, that was awful. And Lando's wasn't much better. I don't know what they did. I feel like they made an adjustment or something on the car. Who knows? But yeah, it was an eternity in there. So one of the things I want to bring up, just simply because you were so hard on him last week, was Danny Rick. But now we've had 3 races where Danny Rick has outperformed one Yuki Tsunoda in a row. So my question is, where you at, Yuki? That's my question, because I like the kid, man, but it's just like it's like the same thing that happened to Checo. They get a contract extension, and then it's like, where are they? What are they doing? I don't know what's going through Yuki's mind right now, but dude, he has not performed the past 3 races, and he does not function well when Danny's in front of him at all. And Danny was faster than him all weekend. And crickets on the other side of this. Oh, there he is.
They both suck. They both suck. The cars suck.
Wow,
I don't
so
know
you're
what
good-
the deal was.
You're going with the both suck.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll say it. They both suck.
No, Danny was top 10 most of the day. The only thing that hosted him was pit stops, and that was only so he could help cover his teammate.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but I think Danny came out the better on this one, and I'm not the only one. In fact, most of the world does. But yeah. So
That's
Yuki
fine.
needs to step it up, man. Regardless how you feel about Ricardo, Yuki needs to step it up. So he needs to return to form. I don't know what kind of funk he's in, but he's going to Austria, and I know he performs well at Austria. The only difference is that Danny Rick also performs very well at Austria. A lot of those guys do that have been with the Red Bull machine for a while. I look forward to seeing good laps from Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon, and of course Max and Checo and Yuki. So any of those guys that have been in the Red Bull machine. So anyway, yeah, that's what we got coming up next, dude, is the Red Bull Ring. Pretty excited about it. It's the fastest lap in F1, I think. Is there any lap time that's faster than the Red Bull Ring? Simply based on
I don't think so.
simply based on stats alone. I don't know what the record time is. I think I remember Max churning out a 105 something for Red Bull, that's blazing fast.
Yeah.
But I think we'll see race times probably in the 108, 109, 110 lap times during the race, but still very, very short circuit. Kind of technical in certain places. You got that. I mean, technically it's turn 3, but it should be turn 2. That's an uphill hard right. And when you come across the top, I don't know who said it best, but somebody said when you come across the top of that, it's like you're on a nonstick frying pan. which is a really good explanation and description of how that, because you come off of there and it's almost like you get high centered for a split second and you have zero traction when you get to the top. So it'll be interesting to see how all them guys perform this weekend with these cars. I feel like, I don't know what your predictions are going to look like this weekend, but I feel like this is Max's race to lose. Go ahead. Sorry.
1.5 from Carlos Sainz is the lap record.
There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and say Carlos Sainz will have a good weekend. But assuming they don't, put him in a Ferrari from 10 years ago. But yeah, I feel like this is going to be Max's race to lose. My podium will be Max, Carlos, Lando Norris for this. So, what are you thinking?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Max, Lando, Leclerc.
Wow. Okay. That's a good podium. It makes sense given what Ferrari's doing. But here's the thing. I don't think we can count Mercedes out right now.
Yeah. I know. That's the thing.
So George,
I hate to count them in.
George Russell's going to be the Joker card, I think, going into this race. So
yeah,
he could play spoiler on any one of those three.
Well, maybe Sainz will get up there and take the lead at one point.
Maybe that would be nice.
If Sainz can get up there and take the lead at some point, that'll get rid of George.
Yeah, and if we could get George in a tussle with Checo, then we'd be doing okay. Because those two love getting together. And I'm not going to count out Oscar either, man, because he'll want to make a strong comeback. Because I know he's going to probably read all the news and social media this week, and it's not going to be favorable. So hopefully he's one of those guys that'll be like, you know what? I'll show you what's going on. So I'd like to see him in the mix. I wouldn't mind seeing him play spoiler to Lando, because that would just be funny as someone who's not a McLaren fan.
Would be fine.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. But man, let's finish out talking about. We've got to start talking about this silly season, dude, because it's getting crazy. I think K-Mag said it best when he said that Sainz is the cork in the bottle. He said nothing's going to happen until we figure out what Sainz is doing. So I don't know what your thoughts are, but so far this week alone, I've got Sainz linked to Sauber, Williams, Alpine, and if Chad gets his way, he'll be linked to Mercedes. And he is sort of linked to Mercedes press-wise. So.
Yeah. I know Doonan and Schumacher are testing for Alpine this week.
Yeah, and I wanted to bring that up because Mick is going to be testing at Circuit Paul Ricard in the Alpine. Jack Doohan is obviously on the bench for that car as well, and I know he wants it pretty bad. I don't know it seems like they don't want to give it to him. I don't know what you're thinking, but it just, as good as he is, it just feels like they don't want to give it to him yet. So there's got to be something.
Yeah.
That's holding him back from just saying, hey, Doohan's our guy.
It seems like every time his name's brought up, it gets moved on to something else real fast.
It gets slapped down fast. And I don't know why they're so excited about Mick testing in this car. I mean, dude, he was awful. I mean, there's just no way to say it.
Yeah.
Maybe a year in endurance racing has helped, but I mean, come on, man. He wasn't good. But again, none of this, anybody else that we talk about, is not going to matter a damn until Sainz makes a decision. So you got James Voles coming after him.
Nothing moves until he does.
Yeah. James Voles is coming after him hardcore with Williams. I don't think Sainz wants to go there. I don't think the Merc power unit is a good fit for him. But that's just me saying that. Chad wants him to go to Mercedes. And I get it. That wouldn't be a bad setup, except for I don't think he can drive that Mercedes. I don't think that car's geared towards him.
Yeah.
Alpine would actually be a return for him because they used to be Renault and he drove for Renault. So that would be weird in and of itself because you hardly ever see a driver go back to a team they left. Fernando Alonso's done it maybe twice, but he's a different kind of animal. But then we got Jack Doohan, who's possibly on the bench for Alpine. Then you got Antonelli, who is Toto's, guy.
Golden child.
Yeah, but I don't think he wants to put him in the main Merc seat right now. Thank God he's got a junior team in Williams. So he could technically go to Williams or Aston Martin, depending on what Stroll wants to do.
So I know you don't like to bring guys back, and I don't know how the exit was before, but to hold that spot, would Bottas be an option for Mercedes? He's been there before. He's got 10 wins with them.
And a shit ton of points.
Spot. And he's just holding a spot.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I didn't even think about that, but I mean, yeah. Especially with Lewis gone, I bet Bottas would jump at that.
Yeah.
I don't think George is going to like it all that much.
Put a threat on George. That doesn't. Well, it wouldn't threaten George as much as somebody like Sainz would. Bringing Sainz in there would.
Yeah.
George would go into fit.
Yeah. You'd be threatening his manhood right there. Dude, I don't know. Now I'm going to be thinking about that. Thank you for that, by the way. I don't think so. As amicable as they showed that split between Bottas and Toto on Drive to Survive, I don't think it was as smooth as they let on. Because that last season, Bottas really kind of stretched his legs and didn't really follow team orders all that well. I think he was just done with it at that point. And I think his argument it would be, I was here with Lewis for Lord knows how many years, except for the 1 year with Nico Rosberg. And now you want me to come in to play with Lewis Jr. for a bunch of years. No. I think one of the reasons he's in the back of the field.
Well, here's the deal. If he's thinking about it, he was unhappy following Lewis around and doing the work for him so Lewis could gather all those wins. Yeah, that gets old. I don't ever get to do anything. I've just got to stay back here and block and whatnot.
Yeah.
Well, his only other option is shit. So you know what? That'll change somebody's mind. That wasn't so bad.
Well, maybe. And I can see you looking at it that way until you see how happy he's been being in the back of the field. Like you didn't see him show out like he does now when he was with Mercedes. He was walking the fine line. It was like, yeah, I'm here to be second.
Yeah.
I'm here to be second. Now he's got mullets and ass calendars. You were supposed to spit up your drink. I queued you up for that.
And you know what? I think that uptight team Mercedes could use some mullets and ass calendars.
Yes, but yeah, he's just out here. He's doing funny, whatever that commercial line he's doing. I forgot what he's doing. Was it a traveling show or cars or something? Anyway,
Uber share. Or
yes, Uber something. So I think he's having fun, man. I think he's enjoying the twilight of his career in style. And this is the first chance he's ever had to really just be Valtteri Bottas instead of being second driver, Mercedes, AMG, F1 Petronas.
If taking that away from him, I would not be a fan of because I love to watch his antics.
Yeah, man, that's a really good. We're gonna have to follow up on that. So our next one that we got to talk, we talked about Doohan and Antonelli and Bottas, but then you got K-Mag. And when they asked K-Mag, he's basically kind of just pushed off the question by saying, I know what I have to do to keep my seat. And I think that there was a little piece on the end of that he didn't say, which was, and right now I'm not doing that. But then again, he's also saying, look, it's really going to come down to whatever Sainz does. And I think everybody is going to give that answer. Well, I guess after Sainz picks his seat, then we'll figure it out. Gasly said the same thing.
Yeah.
And Gasly's starting to perform this year, so that it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Then you got Liam Lawson, who has no chance in hell of getting that V-carb seat now. He needs to. I don't know if he knows that, but he's not getting it. That's Danny Rick's seat, and the other one's Yuki's seat, and that's just the way it's going to be. And you can think whatever you think about Danny Rick, but Danny Rick is Red Bull royalty. So the only other person that could come in and secure that seat even more would probably be Vettel, who's got 4 championships with him. So, but then one that we don't bring up is Ocon. Ocon's leaving Alpine, but he's still going to be on the market. He's not trying to leave F1. And on top of that, you got 2 teams that are actively trying to get him on their team. One is Haas, which would change up the Magnussen argument. And the second one is Sauber. But again, can't get the Sauber seat until we figure out what Sainz is doing.
Yeah.
Because that Sauber seat is Sainz unless he doesn't take it. I mean, it literally already is. He's already signed. I don't know if it's a contract or a pre-release or whatever it is, but he's technically going to be Hulkenberg's teammate at Sauber. So I guess we got to figure that out.
Yeah, everything circles back to Sainz.
Yeah. You remember
He's
a
holding up
couple years ago when it was Alonso was the cork in the bottle? Or Vettel, when Vettel said I'm retiring, that was the cork. That popped the cork. Because that moved Alonso to Aston Martin. And then it started dominoes like you would not believe. So this year it's going to be, where does Sainz go? So anyway, I don't know how you, yeah. That's it. So I don't know what else to tell you there.
Something else. Where does Adrian Newey go? How about that?
I got to tell you right now, since McLaren caught up and Mercedes caught up and Ferrari caught up, I don't really give a shit. I've literally lost interest in the Adrian Newey story.
We're getting there, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. Although I know he asked for $25 million from Aston Martin or something like that, something god awful. He'll get it if he thought he was going to hold Aston Martin hostage. Lawrence Stroll would say, "Yeah, we'll give you $25 million. Yeah, that's fine. You're going to come in here for 2 or 3 years, retire, but make sure when you leave that everybody under you is as good as you are. Because then we can keep one of those guys and sell the other 2 to another team." But yeah, they'll pay that. I mean, Lawrence Stroll won't think twice about paying that. But again, if you're asking me, I've reached a point where Adrian Newey's not a big story to me now. Because these other teams have proven they can catch up.
Yeah, Mercedes, like you said, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren have all caught up without him.
Yeah. Yeah, they have. And I'll tell you something else. Once the teams catch up on how Red Bull plays their strategies out, then it'll be even crazier. But here's the thing. We've only got next year. Because once the regulations change, we'll have to go through all this bullshit again. One team won't be out in front. And then it'll be 2 or 3 years of that team, and we'll just be sick to death of that team. And then, the other teams will catch up. And then, guess what? It'll be 2030, and the regulations will change again. So it's the vicious cycle, man. It's like it's that snake that's eating its own tail. So, or at least that's just my opinion. I could be wrong for sure. But yeah, just not interested
definitely
anymore.
Things up.
Exactly. So, man, we got
everything. We're still waiting on Sainz.
Yeah, just waiting on Sainz. So let's cancel. Let's got to talk about fantasy before we cut out. Sorry, I'm pushing it over to
Why?
different screen. We do. Because I'll never hear the end of it from one particular person if I don't. And you know I'm right. So here we go. So this week, Chad won at Spain with a grand total of 218 points. Your daughter came in P2, and her boyfriend came in P3. So here we are at 189 points for P3. So the nice little spread from 218 to 189 on the podium. You came in fourth. You were trying to get that podium, but you were short by 7 points, man. I don't know what cost you that 7 points. I'm going to try to find out. Probably Fernando Alonso or Yuki.
Maybe. I don't know. I've done some major changes.
I see that.
I'm going for broke.
It's the first time I've looked at your team for a while. Yeah. I like your setup, man. I really do.
Earlier today. If
I'm
this
one of those
doesn't
people-
work, I'm going to make a run for last place.
Well, I can tell you right
changing
now,
it if
there's
this doesn't work.
a lot of us at the top are screwed with Logan Sargent. And that reminds me, speaking of fantasy and silly season at the same time, Chad told me that he read a rumor, and I guess it came through ESPN, that Logan Sargent has accepted a seat for IndyCar and that Felipe Drugovich is going to be taking over that Williams car. But I don't know when. I didn't get any information on when. But I told him that's going to cause
the Sargent
a fantasy
part
problem. Yeah. That's going to cause a fantasy problem because Felipe Drugovich is good. And he will enter the fantasy league at more than 5.5 million. Which a lot of people that are running Logan Sargent, it's because they don't have the money to get anybody else. And if Logan leaves and we're not allowed to run without a full team, that's going to suck if people have to dump good people to pick up Felipe Drugovich. And it's not right. So Felipe should enter the league at the same price of Logan Sargent and then go up from there. And that's the only right and fair way to do it. I don't know what your thoughts are, but that's the only right and fair way to do it.
Yeah.
So not that at the end of the day, fantasy sports are that crazy important because, hey, they are fantasy sports, but still to make it right. But in the overall scheme, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't want to pick up Logan Sargent this week, but I said, you know what? I'm going to get him because he's in a position now where he's just making laps.
Yeah.
And pitting every other lap. Whatever, dude. Just finish.
Yeah, him and Boltas got me 1 point this week. So, anyway, as far as overall
1 point is
goes,
better than negative points.
True. As far as overall, before we get off here for the night, in the overall, Paul Cook, Big City Paul, is at 1,778 points in P1. At 70 points behind him is Toby Wools. From the constructor, I was in first recently. And the Puteria Calamari team, F1 team, is in P3, which is mine, at 1,701. So I am 77 points out of first. So we'll see what happens this week at Austria. So we got 3 back-to-back weeks counting this past week. So we'll see what happens, man. Well, buddy, that's all I have for tonight.
Yeah.
And we will reconvene for Austria next week, man. And have a great rest of your week.
Good night, everyone.
Night, y'all.